Kunja Vihar Jaya Radha Jaya Gopi Janagana Madhurivadada Jaya Gopi Janagana Madhurivadada Yashodanandana Prajajanara Yashodanandana Prajajanara Jamunatira Vavita Jamunatira Vavita Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihar Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihar Jaya Gopi Janagana Jaya Gopi Janagana Girivaraja Yashodanandana Rajajanaranja Yashodanandana Rajajanaranja Jamunatira Vavita Jamunatira Vavita Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada ki, Shri Shikodamacharya Goswami ki, Shri Chalshrinath Maharaj ki, Shri Guru Lal ki, Shri Nasudev Purana ki, Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. So we're reading from Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita. Chapter entitled At Home in India. So, a few days later, while still in New Delhi, Srila Prabhupada received a letter from Rameshwara. The BBT in Los Angeles was miraculously fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's order to publish 17 volumes in 2 months. The composers, editors, artists, and workers had ecstatically finished their marathon on schedule. When the first books had come back from the printers and had been offered on the altar of Rukmini Dwarkadish, devotees had cried in transcendental bliss, chanting again and again the mantras to Srila Prabhupada. They were feeling the potency of the order of their spiritual master and seeing themselves as instruments in carrying out what at once seemed an impossible request. Okay, so this is the letter that Srila Prabhupada received from Rameshwara. Today, our composer finished the last 2 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita. By Wednesday next week, August 20th, all volumes will be at the printer. Now they are just starting to compose the 5th canto, and the entire canto will definitely be at the printer by the Asapuja day. After promising delivery of books by October at the latest, the letter was signed by about 60 devotees. They are unworthy servants of ISKCON Press. On their behalf, Rameshwara stated, "We have lost all desire to do anything except be engaged in producing and distributing your transcendental books by the millions in every town and village." Srila Prabhupada wrote back the next day from Delhi, "Regarding your desire for all 12 cantos, you will get it, rest assured. So your so much ardent desire will be fulfilled by Krishna." On August 21st, Rameshwara sent Srila Prabhupada a telegram. By the mercy of Lord Balaram Nityananda, the last volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita is leaving today for the printer. By your mercy and divine order it is done. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Text 8. Canto 5, Chapter 8, the character of Bharat Maharaj, text 18 and 19. Api chana salavrikon yatamo vana ekacharo va pakshayati. Please repeat. Apicha.
Apicha.
O.
O.
Na.
Na.
Not.
Not.
Rika.
Rika.
A wolf.
A wolf.
Salavrika.
Salavrika.
A dog.
A dog.
A dog.
Anyatama.
Anyatama.
Any one of many.
Any one of many.
Va.
Va.
O.
Or.
Na ekachara.
Na ekachara.
The hogs that flock together.
The hogs that flock together.
Ekachara.
Ekachara.
The tiger that wanders alone.
The tiger that wanders alone.
Va.
Va.
O.
Or.
Bhakshayati
Bhakshayati
is eating the poor creature.
is eating the poor creature.
Translation. I do not know, but the deer might have been eaten by a wolf or a dog, or by the boars that flock together, or the tiger who travels alone. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Tigers never wander in the forest in flocks. Each tiger wanders alone, but the forest boars keep together. Similarly, hogs, wolves, and dogs also do the same. Thus, Maharaj Bharat thought that the deer had been killed by some of the many ferocious animals within the forest. Text 19. Nimlochatiha Bhagavan Sakala Jagat Shimodayas Chai Atma Dyapi Mamanamrigavadunyas Agachati. Please repeat. Vimalochati
Nimlochati
sets.
sets.
Ha,
Ha,
alas,
alas,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
represented as the Sun,
represented as the sun,
Sakala Jagat,
Sakala Jagat,
of all the universe,
of all the universe,
Shema Udaya,
Shema Udaya,
who increases the auspiciousness,
who increases the auspiciousness,
Trai Atma,
Jai Atma,
who consists of the three Vedas,
who consists of the three Vedas,
Adya Api,
Adya Api,
until now,
until now,
Mama,
Mama,
my,
no,
no, not,
not,
Mriga,
Mriga,
Vadunyasa,
Vadunyasa,
this baby deer,
this baby deer,
entrusted to me by its mother,
entrusted to me by its mother,
Agachati,
Agachati,
has come back.
has come back.
Translation. Alas, when the sun rises, all auspicious things begin. Unfortunately, they have not begun for me. The sun god is the Vedas personified, but I am bereft of all Vedic principles. That sun god is now setting, yet the poor animal who trusted in me since its mother died has not returned. Please repeat. Alas, when the sun rises,
Alas, when the sun rises,
all auspicious things begin.
all auspicious things begin.
Unfortunately, they
Unfortunately,
have not begun for me.
they have not begun for me.
The sun god is the Vedas personified,
The sun god is the Vedas personified,
but I am bereft of all Vedic principles.
the time bereft of all Vedic principles.
That sun god is now setting,
That sun god is now sitting.
yet the poor animal who trusted in me
The poor animal who trusted in me
since its mother died
since its mother died
has not returned.
has not returned.
Therefore, by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
In the Brahma Samhita 552, the sun is described as the eye of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yachchakshuresh savita sakalagrahanam raja samasa surimoti yashesha teja yasya gyaya brahmati samritakara chakra govindamadi purisham tamaham bhajami. As the sun arises, one should chant the Vedic mantra, beginning with the Gayatri. The sun is the symbolic representation of the eyes of the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Bharat lamented that although the sun was going to set, due to the poor animal's absence, he could not find anything auspicious. Bharat Maharaj considered himself most unfortunate, for due to the animal's absence, there was nothing auspicious for him in the presence of the sun. Omagyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtamasthapatami Yena Bhutale Swayamrupakadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Saganamaganatam Shajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shivasapanitam Shra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopikakanta Radhakanta Namostate Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakapatarubhyascha Rasindhavyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
I've got a question. So when we talk about mental health, because mental health right now is through the roof, and we can see here from Maharaj Bharat that due to his intense attachment to the deer, it's causing him to become kind of to lose sight of the reality of what's going on in the situation. So would it be fair to say that mental health issues are rarely due to attachment to the wrong things?
Yes, definitely. But this pastime lets us see how powerful the mind is. And if the mind is not engaged in auspicious activity, then it will latch on to what is the most the nearest thing and the easiest thing to stick onto, just as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Jayato Vishayam Pumasam Sangateshu Jayati. By contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment for them, and from attachment, lust arises. From lust, anger arises, and from anger, bewilderment and memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So this can happen very, very quickly. We don't really know, it happened very quickly for Maharaj Bharat because he was like, he had a kind of what you might, a mental health practitioner might call, he had a traumatic experience of like the mother deer dying and leaving the child. So often psychiatrists analyze that people who have chronic mental health problems, that it started with some kind of acute traumatic experience, which kind of forced them out of their normal functioning situation, and they took shelter of something which they would normally not take shelter of. And very quickly their intelligence was lost. And it seems that if at that point, if at that point they don't have help from someone who can stabilize them, then it's a really, really difficult job.
Yeah, I was just thinking because he makes the story up. He says the mother entrusted. Now that didn't happen. The mother wasn't clever enough to even know that she just lost her life. So he's actually now if somebody was with me, you could say, well, that's not actually true. That's not actually a fact. You weren't entrusted at all. So you see how his mind's playing games with him.
I mean, Maharaj Bharat, see, he was, of all of the kings and emperors that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he lives about the longest. And because he was such a elevated devotee and he loved all of his citizens, and we read that many of his citizens were also pure devotees. So he was, this was a completely unprecedented circumstance for him to be alone. So anyway, it's obviously a warning for us. So Srila Prabhupada is, we experience this every day that during the morning program, especially during Guru Puja, greeting of the deities and Bhagavatam class, there's so much opportunity to absorb the mind and to really appreciate the mercy that we're receiving, to really appreciate the auspicious environment that we're in. But then just a few minutes later, then we can be struggling to remain in that consciousness, and just a little, some physical problem or some mental anxiety can put us into a state of forgetfulness. And so Srila Prabhupada, this is why Srila Prabhupada, as Toksha was mentioning yesterday, said that constant chanting means 16 rounds on the beads and then unlimited chanting off the beads. And we've been, for the last 2 or 3 years, at Vrindavan, we've really been trying to imbibe this mood of gaining the appreciation of Krishna's presence in the holy name, and that it's actually a relationship that we're endeavoring to establish with Krishna through the chanting of the holy names. So, it's really it's beginning to dawn on me now, the value of this process of accepting the Japa period as a time to establish a relationship with Krishna in the form of the holy name, so that whenever, and also for it to be a struggle. It's just as I was reading that verse from Bhagavad Gita a few days ago. Should learn this verse. I quote it so often thinking that I know it, but actually I still haven't learned it after all these years. But it's chapter 5. Shaknoti haivaya shodam praksharira vimokshanat kama krodod bhavan vegam sayuktasa sakinara. Chapter 5, text 23. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. And in the last sentence of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, it is the duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. So the warning from this pastime is that if we're not constantly trying to strenuously control desire and anger, and to positively focus on our relationship with Krishna, then we're leaving ourselves open to bewilderment and loss of intelligence, and so even you may think, well, I'm fortunate. I'm not like Maharaj Bharat by myself in the forest. I'm in the association of devotees, but we can lose our consciousness in a few seconds especially by physical pain or like real mental trauma, bereavement, or something which kind of agitates a suppressed envy or suppressed anger that we may not be aware of. So all of these things are just like synonymous with the deer dying. So we should certainly know it could happen to us. It could definitely happen to us at any time. And then also we could be taken out of the association of devotees due to severe illness or accident or some other trauma. We're living in a world of extreme uncertainty. So we should always feel, let me somehow or other today try to think, okay, during Guru Puja I was really focused on meditating on the meaning of this prayer. During deity greeting I was focused on looking at the deities and thinking of the mercy that we have. So I'm making that endeavor now. How can I carry that endeavor over into my day?
It just reminds me of the first 7 habits of highly effective people is that you have to be proactive. So if your environment is affecting you to the point where your consciousness is changed by you've not reached the first level, which is just to become proactive, which means proactive person means he can be in a situation which is extremely very difficult, but he doesn't react, he only acts according to his values and his principles. So that's kind of the first test, isn't it? Is you chant nicely, you attend Guru Puja, you have class nicely, everything's good, and now here comes the first test. Can you implement that irrespective of what's going on around you? Can you override and be proactive? They say the first thing actually for a proactive person to be is happy. Just by deciding I'm going to be happy. Because if you don't decide to be happy, you're actually deciding to be unhappy. Because you make a choice, you see. So the best proactive choice to make is today I'm going to be happy, no matter what.
Do you think it's possible to have that, or do you think it's realistic to have that kind of sankalpa?
Yeah, well, if you look at Viktor Frankl, his wife and parents had been killed in the Nazi camps, and he was alone, naked in a room one day, and he was just reflecting. He was a true psychiatrist. And he called it the last human freedom was the freedom to continue being happy. So I was thinking he hadn't been to Bhagavatam that morning, and he didn't know about chanting Hare Krishna, but he worked that one out, stumbled across it himself, you see. So we can glean from other people and think, okay, well, if he can manage that, surely I can. Why should I accept that I can't? I can just as easily accept that I can.
So how do we were talking yesterday about balance. Well, I heard Prabhupada Prama talking to Felix about balance yesterday, in the sense that because we're involved in outreach, then we've decided to make friends with people who are not necessarily fully committed to the path, and in those environments, then we're trying to become friends of people. So it would seem, some people perhaps do have that ability to be friends and simultaneously to be fully in control of their emotions and be aware of, but it seems. And naturally, when you're talking to someone and you want to try to be natural with a person, it's kind of to be introspective and natural at the same time. seems like there's some conflict there. So they were also talking about making friends with ourselves, being happy, but at the same time being aware of the possible impending crises that are upon us. And also for someone who's actually who's had a negative experience of attempting to control the mind and to be proactive. And how can they be like relaxed and happy when they have like a long record of negative experiences?
Yeah, well, the situation will vary from person to person, but it's the same button that everyone can press. It's the happy button, and it's as simple as that. We're not aware of actually how easy it is. That's what my illusion makes it seem a lot more difficult than it actually is. It's actually a very simple, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to do. You have to get used to pressing the button, that's for sure, and you have to know where the button is, and you have to be aware that you can press it. But once you have pressed it a few times and you realise it's working, then your next anxiety then is, can you show everybody else that also? Because
can you what? Share it?
Share everybody else. Yeah. They say there's could be's and be's and haves, and the haves say, I will be happy when I have this, I will be happy when I have that, I will be happy when this takes place, I will be happy when. And the B people say, I can be happy by being grateful, I can be happy by appreciating, I can be happy by being tolerant, I can be happy by being. So you can see when it comes to being, you can always affect that. How you can't, and how's out of your control. You can try to, you're never quite sure whether it will happen or not. But if it's big, like today you just said, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be appreciative, I'm going to be so grateful. You can do that. You can actually do that. So then my job is to try and cheat us into thinking we can't, to try and convince us that we can't do it.
So is gratitude then is gratitude an asset, or is gratitude
an attitude?
An attitude.
It's a positive attitude, and an attitude itself.
So what is an attitude?
An attitude is a paradigm, how you see something. They say that before you can change, you have to change the way you see something. So the man was seeing the children making a fuss on the train, and he was really annoyed at the father. When the father told him the mother had just died, he changed the way he saw things. That changed his attitude, you see. So you could have done that anyway. You could have decided, well, I don't know what the situation is here, but maybe their mother's just died. And you can do that with anything, or anybody. You can do that. You can make excuses for them.
Yeah.
That's being proactive. You decide you're going to be the one that fills the gap. When you see some failing or some problem, then the default is always to just kind of have an attitude towards it. So that's why it takes a certain amount of owning yourself. You need to realize actually how much you are and how much you do have control over how you feel about things.
It's interesting, I've got a verse open here. After many births and deaths, he was actually in knowledge, surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So he was actually in knowledge. See, so when you said that, it's a paradigm of the way you look at things. So we have that wealth, or we have that good fortune of at least having theoretical knowledge. So we have the ability to change the paradigm because we have so much theoretical knowledge. So there are so many verses we can bring to our mind, so many pastimes, so many, just like we were reading there, that pastime from Prabhupada Lilamrita, how the devotees changed their paradigm there, that it is possible. And if we manage it, then Prabhupada will be so pleased. So, I suppose, for my appreciation, really, before I will be happy, it's like, that that there is always something you can do which will be beneficial for yourself at every moment. There's always an attitude which you can adopt, which will be more beneficial. And because you have that knowledge, because you have the knowledge of the Vedic literature, and especially the Bhakti literature, and also because we're in Kali Yuga, and there's a special benediction in Kali Yuga that Kaladosha Nija Rajanasya Kitananjanaya Kitanadeva Krishna Syamukta Sangha Paramrajet. Yeah, Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, but there is one good quality, simply by chanting the name of Krishna. So, and it says one gains liberation. So what liberation doesn't necessarily mean at the time of death. Liberation means now. So now we can be liberated from our anxiety and our fear by Krishna Katha, chanting Krishna's names, glorifying Krishna. So for myself, that's actually the happy button, that whenever I actually chant in those situations, it's always a surprise to me actually. And I come up, I just chant a shloka, chant a prayer, chant the holy name, sing a bhajan with Krishna's names, and I don't even know where it comes from. Like, it's not necessarily a conscious decision to do it, but it's kind of like a rescue remedy which I've imbibed in some way. So I suppose this is Prabhupada's mercy of the morning program, and yeah, so it's really, Krishna also says in the first verse of that chapter, now here, O son of Pritha, by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So it's like, it has to be in full consciousness of Krishna and with mind attached to Krishna. So a Shakti, that's interesting. So in the Sanskrit, the word is Mai, to me, asakta mana, mind attached to me. And then mad ashraya, in consciousness me, it also means taking full shelter of me. So in chanting our japa in the morning program, this is something we can practice. You know, if we find the morning program like the time of the day, in which we feel our attitude is least compromised, okay, so let's take advantage of this time to chant our japa, sing the prayers, have darshan of the deities, offer arati in full consciousness of Krishna and with mind attached to Krishna. So, there are so many ways we can endeavor to attach our mind to the process of chanting and hearing. There's so many ways we can endeavor to have full consciousness. And then in that way, at those times during the day when we feel very weak, well, sorry, I won't say we, I'm just talking about myself generally, that when we feel defeated or feel embarrassed by a lack of self-control, so there may not be anything that we can it may not be possible for me to control my mind. However, if I actually have endeavored to chant in the morning, attaching my mind to Krishna, taking shelter of Krishna fully, then certainly there'll be more of a uprising of that energy from my heart and my mind, which can actually overpower the mental disturbance. So yeah, I've definitely experienced that. And then when we have that energy that comes from deeper down in our consciousness due to the morning program, then we can begin to utilize that energy to actually act positively in the moment.
An interesting thing is about the mind, Bhagavatam is speaking about how the mind is in the mode of goodness, and the false ego is in the mode of ignorance. So when we talk about the mind, we talk about two different aspects to the mind, actually. We talk about the nice mind, which is just, what's the program, how we're doing this, and we just go along with it in a very kind of simple way. And then we talk about the mind which is being influenced by the false ego, and then it becomes distorted. So recognizing that this is not me, this is my mind being refracted through the false ego, can help us then to desist from being attached to it. Because it's so nice to have a mind in the mode of goodness, and it's such a nice thing to have with you, a nice companion to have a mind in the mode of goodness. And it's such a disturbance when the mind is affected by the false ego, because the false ego is all about protecting yourself. How dare he speak to me like this? I have my rights. I have this. So this is the false ego. The real ego is I am nothing. I'm just a tiny insignificant part and parcel of Krishna. I'm nothing. And then if the mind says, well, what's the program? And the real ego says, we're nothing, and we're supposed to serve. And the mind goes, all right, okay, that sounds good enough, okay. And then it asks the false ego, what's the program? And the false ego says, well, we need to kill this person straight away, or we'll be defeated. And then we need to get a machine going and destroy half the people on the planet, and then we'll be okay. And then the mind's like, oh, okay, that's the program, and it just goes along with it. So it's interesting to dismantle it, break it all down, and say there's intelligence, which is mode of passion, then there's false ego, mode of ignorance, and then mind, mode of goodness.
So do you find that in during japa, like, because, you know, I did once practice this means of chanting, that whenever when I was reading the Bhagavatam, Canto 3, where it describes the false ego in the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance, different, how the false ego is manifest in the three modes. So when I was chanting, whenever I became absorbed in my body in any way then I would immediately say, okay, mode of ignorance, just go back to chanting. Whenever I was engaged in the mind, like going off on ideas, then I would say, okay, mode of passion, and then just go back to the chanting. Whenever I was engaged in like working things out, and then I was thinking, okay, mode of goodness, like the intelligence, maybe just go back to the chanting. So it's like recognizing that all different kinds of disturbance or distraction were just the false ego in different modes. So, you know, so do you develop the intelligence to be able to actually, you know, be balanced and relaxed, and at the same time to ignore the mind?
Yeah, what we do, we don't get too involved in the intricacies of how the mechanism is working. We understand that we have to purify the consciousness, because the consciousness right now is contaminated. And so when you're engaged in cleansing something, you're not paying much attention really to what the dirt is or where the dirt is. You put the whole garment into the water with the detergent, and you swish it around, knowing that whatever is in there will be out there in due course of time. You don't address it directly, you see. So then when the garment does come out, although you weren't directly conscious of that particular stain being removed, it is removed just by the process, So you can drop the analysis. That is not part of the process.
It's a part of the chanting process, though.
The chanting process is to absorb in the sound vibration and cleanse. So it's a cleansing process. And then afterwards, the purification, you experience the purification because there's a removal of the false ego. So they say there's 32 different ways of chanting bad japa. And one form of bad japa Mahatma was saying is, I am right japa. So you're chanting, but all the time you're thinking of how you are right. I am right, I am right. Then you have all your arguments listed, all the different things that you're going to say. So then when you finish chanting, what's happened really is you've just empowered your false ego, but you haven't become purified because you've got caught in the analysis process. Now, if you could put that aside, whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, I just need to chant now and hear the holy name. Now, when you become purified, and there's no false ego, then you'll be able to address the situation in a much better way, you see. So sometimes this analysis is a distraction from the process, which is just the cleansing process. We know that in our pure consciousness, there are no problems. The only problem is with our impure consciousness. That is the ultimately only real problem, you see. So rather than striving for some secondary patch-up situation or solution, we transcend all those intermediary stages and immediately go to cleansing the consciousness, because we know that if we were in pure consciousness, we'll know exactly what to do. The Lord will be directing us exactly how we should behave, what we should do. If we're confused about how we should act and what we should do, and we're trying to analyze things, then we become distracted from what the process is, you see.
Okay, thank you. I'm very fortunate. I was just thinking now, I just have to make sure I don't jump out of the washing machine, especially when it's on. And I have the good fortune of devotees who are keeping me inside the washing machine on a particular program. You know, it's like a particular program which you can set, and it just runs all day, and it does a bit of, you know, it does various different things to the clothes.
Oh, it's not spent.
Okay.
So it's interesting because we know sadhu-sangha, we know that's what's needed. But proper sadhu-sangha is when you approach the sangha in a very humble state of mind, you feel everybody else is better than you, and you have so much appreciation and respect. And the sangha really electrifies. If everyone's feeling like that, then it's a very electrifying field to be in. You know? But whether somebody else wants to be like that or not, proactive as well, I know that this is the right way to do it. So I will like this. And if this person wants to be proud and look down on me, well, that's up to him. But I'm not going to miss out on being humble. This is a great opportunity for me to be humble now.
Ranjra Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Sadhu Seva Sadhu Sangha ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Nitai Gaura Premanandi
Hari Bol.
Narayana Saraswati Sri Sri Vishnu.
So you think to press the red button.